Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Bell, and I'm a registered dietitian. And I've been teaching people how to eat healthy and stay active for the past 20 years. And I'm here to talk to you as a teenager on how to start a long, healthy life by eating right and staying active. Right. So here we have a plate. And if you just always remember, you are what you eat. And the reason why this is important to remember is that all these different food groups provide things for your body to be able to function correctly and do the things that you need them to do. And so this plate shows you what your plate should look like. So, for example, if you look at this plate, half of your plate is going to be fruits and vegetables, and then the other half is grains and protein. And then you have your dairy off to the side. So that's what your plate should look like at every meal so that you get a balanced diet that provides all the things that you need for your body to function correctly. And the reason why this is important is that each food group does a certain thing. And it can help, especially when you're younger, to be able to set yourself up for a very long and healthy life. So, for example, with dairy, you have calcium in your dairy, and that can make your bones really strong and avoid getting osteoporosis later on in life because your bones are the strongest they are going to be up until the age of 30, and then we start losing bone. So the more bone that you have before you get to the age of 30, the better. And then you have your fruits and vegetables, which each those have vitamins and minerals that are really important to be able to see well, for your skin to repair itself, for you to be able to retract your muscles, like contract your muscles or to run across the room, because those vitamins and minerals are very important. And then you have protein that is there to help repair and build things, different tissues, different muscles. And then you have your grains, and your grains are what give you the energy that you need to do to be able to function correctly. And so when we choose all these different food groups, it helps our bodies to be able to do the things that we need to do. But you also have to remember, in those different food groups, there's some foods that are a little bit better than others. And that's because that some things may have other things that aren't very good for us, and you have to choose wisely in those food groups. So if you can look at this slide here, we have all the different food groups. And as you can see, it tells you what we would consider the things that we'd put in these food groups. So your vegetables. So our vegetables are either they can be cooked, they can be raw, they can be juices. So here at the bottom, it tells you how much that you want to eat per day of the vegetable groups. So you want to eat 2.5 cups every single day of vegetables. And they want you to choose all those different colored. So you want to eat red, orange, dark green vegetables. And that's because those colors are what tells us it's in them. And every different vitamin has a different color. So if we choose all these different colors, that means that we're getting a wide variety of those different vitamins in them. And then we have our fruit group. And so we want to eat at least 2 cups of fruit every day. And so that means raw, cooked fruit, fruit juice, or that's 100% fruit juice. That doesn't mean like a Capri Sun or something like that. That means like orange juice that's 100% juice, or 100% apple juice, or a half a cup of dried fruit. So like raisins, dried cranberries, even dried apples, bananas, stuff like that. You can also eat in place of just eating a regular raw piece of fruit. And you want to eat 2 cups of that per day. And then you have your grains group, and we want to eat 6 ounces every day of grains. And what we consider a grain is bread, rice, pasta, cereals. And the thing that you want to remember about grains is that you want to choose those grains that are considered whole grain or whole wheat. So meaning that we want it to be brown, not white. So we want to choose like whole wheat pasta and then white pasta, or brown rice versus white rice. And you want to choose bread that's not white but brown. And you want to make sure that you're choosing the bread that says whole grain or whole wheat. And then we have our dairy group. And what we consider dairy is milks, yogurts, any type of alternative milk, so like soy milks, almond milk, coconut milk, and cheese all fall underneath the dairy group. And so you want to eat 3 cups every single day. And then you have your protein foods. So your protein foods are going to be your meats, your poultry, fish. We also put eggs and peanut butter, nuts, and beans and peas all underneath the protein group because they're very high in protein. And these are what helps build our muscles and repair our organs and tissues. So we're going to talk about the fruits first. So when we talk about fruits, you don't want to eat fruits that are put in sugar or syrups or anything like that. So you want to choose ones that are whole fruits. And the best thing to do is always eat those fruits that are in season. And typically, those are going to be the ones that you will see in grocery stores as soon as you walk in. But you also can try dried fruits like I talked about. Now, you want to make sure that you are rinsing your fruits, washing them off, and keeping them there close to you so that they're easy to snack on. Now we're going to talk about our vegetable groups. So with vegetables, not everybody likes vegetables, but if you give them a chance and keep trying different ways of eating vegetables and preparing vegetables, you may find something that you really like. And like we said before, you want to choose those with different colors. So, because those colors tell us what is in them, and those vitamins give them those colors. Now, you can try different types of dips. You could even do like a low-fat ranch dressing, or you could do like a hummus, and there's all different types of hummuses out there now. So you could try all these different types, and maybe you'll find something that you like as far as making the vegetables more enjoyable to you. And then you have your grains. And so with grains, you've got to make sure they're whole grains. And so what whole grain means is that we don't want them to be processed. So process means that when we have to break it down into something that it originally was not. So for example, processing wheat down from the actual grain that we harvest all the way down to a flour. The more we process it, the more nutrients that we take out of it. And so once it starts getting into that white area, so when that flour starts getting white, that means that we've processed out all the nutrients in it. And that's what takes away from it all those things that we need to stay healthy, such as fiber and folic acid, all those different nutrients that our bodies need to be able to perform what they need to do. So it's always important to choose whole grain. And something that's easy to grab that's whole grain would be popcorn as a snack. But you want to make sure that the popcorns that you're choosing are going to be your low fat or your fat free, not the buttery ones. And making sure that you, like I said before, that you're choosing whole grain pasta. So that's going to be your browner colored pastas versus your white pasta. And you want to choose brown rice over white rice, and that you want to choose an actual potato over potato chips. So you just want to make sure that you're making things that are healthy for you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to your protein foods. Now, with proteins, the important thing that you want to remember is that you don't want to choose your proteins that are going to be what we consider higher in fat, because that fat that you find a lot of times in your protein foods that are animal products are going to be one, saturated, and then they could also have a lot of cholesterol in them. And so that increases our risk for heart disease. And studies have shown that we start developing cardiovascular disease or heart disease when we are young. As early as 3 years old, we can start developing heart disease. So we really want to be careful as far as the different types of proteins that we choose. And so if you think of like when you pick a steak out, so a steak might have all this fat around the edges, and then you can see the fat within it. Well, that means that it's probably not the best choice. So you want to choose leaner meats that don't have all that fat in them. And you want to choose meats that are going to not have the skin on them. So, for example, chicken without the skin, because the skin on a chicken is where all the fat is. And you want to choose seafoods because seafoods are actually really healthy and really good for you. And so you want to make sure, though, when you're having seafood, it's not the fried seafood, because when we fry things, we're adding more fat to them, and that adds extra calories, and it can increase your risk of heart disease. Now, however, nuts and seeds, those are really, really healthy fats, and they're really good for you and provide a lot of protein for you. So those are some things that you can use for snacks. All right, so now we're going to move on to your dairy. So with dairy is important because it makes our bones stronger. And so we want to choose those dairy products that are going to be low fat or fat free. So that means that you want to choose like the skim milk, or if you're going to choose yogurt, you want to choose yogurt that says fat free on it. And Greek yogurt is the best yogurt to choose because it has a lot more protein in it than regular yogurt. And you want to make sure that you're eating at least 3 servings of dairy per day. So cheese, yogurt, milk, cottage cheese, all those things can provide a lot of calcium for you to make those bones really strong. Now, the things that you want to limit when you're making food choices, one is that you want to avoid salt, because salt actually raises your blood pressure. And when we have higher blood pressure, that can increase our risk for heart disease. And we really want to make sure that we keep our blood pressure as low as possible so that we aren't damaging our blood vessels. So those things that have a lot of sodium in them are going to be what we call processed foods. So when we talk about processed foods, especially with sodium, we're talking about lunch meats, like your frozen foods, and your Hot Pockets, or if you had a corn dog, or bagel bites. All those things have a lot of sodium in it because we use salt to preserve them so that they can stay for a longer period of time. So when we choose foods that are what we call whole and not processed, they don't have as much sodium in them. And also we want to avoid things that have a lot of saturated fat. And so, like I said, a lot of your meats are going to have saturated fat. So you want to choose meats that are leaner. So that means that it doesn't have as much fat on them. And we want to grill them, bake them, cook them in the oven, and try not to add a lot of fat to them. So that would be meaning try not to add salad dressings or butter to it or a lot of oils to it. And then you want to make sure that you're avoiding added sugars. So added sugars aren't like fruit or things or dairy products. Even though they have sugar in them, they are not added sugar. So added sugar is something that when we make it, have to add sugar to it. So those things could be like your candies, jams and jellies typically have added sugars to them. You want to avoid sodas, energy drinks, and especially sports drinks have a lot of sugar added to them. And unless you are a athlete who is spending over 2 hours of some type of physical activity, sports drinks are really not necessary. Even if you're outside and sweating a little bit and you're just there for 30 minutes, you still don't need those sports drinks because you're not sweating enough. So only time you would ever drink those is if it's maybe after 60 minutes of severe exercise would you drink something like a sports drink. All right, so now we're going to talk about portions. So portions are a big thing. And if you can look at this display here, so what you are actually looking at is what you would get at a restaurant. And so with this cheeseburger right here on your left-hand side, it has 1,345 calories and 53 grams of fat per day. And see, the typical American teenage boy or girl doesn't need to be eating that much at any given time, because typically a normal boy or girl who's a teenager would need somewhere from 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day. And 3,000 is kind of on the high end. So if this one meal is pretty much half of what you need in a day, that's a lot of calories that you are consuming in that one meal. So over here, this gives you an example of what you should actually be eating. So in this meal, it's half of what you have over here, and it decreases the amount of calories that you're taking in to only like 650 calories in this one meal. So you have to look at how much you're taking in and what an actual serving size should look like. So here we have also an idea of like comparison of how much things have for calories. So 20 years ago, portions were a lot smaller. And now we've become a society of people who feel like it's important that we get more value out of what we buy. So we think that if we can buy a hamburger for $1, the bigger the better. We want to make sure that the money that we're spending, we are getting the most that we can get out of it. But in that process, we're overeating. But if we look at these, so for example, this hamburger at the top is 330 calories 20 years ago. Now today it would be 590 calories. So that's 257 calories more per day that we are taking in when we choose the hamburger from today. So in order to burn that off, we would have to lift wait for an hour and 30 minutes just to burn off that 257 calories. So those are the things that you need to think about when you're choosing certain things. For example, if we're talking about muffins, so a muffin 20 years ago used to be around 210 calories, and that's a normal size muffin that you would get at home that you are making in a muffin tin versus what you would buy at the store, those Otis Spunkmeyers that are the big ones, or even the one that maybe at Starbucks that you would get. They have anywhere from 500 to 600 calories in them. And so, in order to burn off that extra calories that you're eating in that muffin, you have to vacuum for an hour and a half to burn those extra calories. So you have to remember that when you are over consuming, we have to be more active in order to burn those calories off, or we will continue to gain weight over a period of time. And so if we continue to overeat and overconsume calories, eventually our weight is going to continue to get higher and higher, which places us at risk for certain disease such as heart disease, diabetes, and even possibly leading to strokes or Alzheimer's because of the blockage in the arteries and veins leading to our brains. So you have to remember that you really want to think about how much you're eating as far as calorie-wise. So, thing you want to remember also is that calories, it's not just about calories, but what we get with those calories. So we have good calories and not so good calories. I wouldn't call them so bad calories. I would just say that they're probably not the best choices, because we can always have a hamburger or a soda and French fries every once in a while. It doesn't mean that we can never have those. It's just we want to choose those not so much. So maybe once a week, once a month, you want to make those choices. But every day, you want to choose those good calories. And a good calorie is something that's going to have a lot of nutrients in it and are going to be what we call nutrient dense calories. And so, nutrient dense calories are ones that have a lot of vitamins in them, a lot of minerals, have a lot of protein, have a lot of good carbohydrates in them, so that it gives us the fuel and the energy that we need to be able to perform the activities that our bodies need to perform. All right, so now we're going to look at our nutrition labels. I'm sure everybody has seen these. So these are two different examples of what a nutrition label can look like. So in label A, we have something that has 8 servings in it per container. So we'll say maybe this is potato chips. So if we look at this one, so in that container, it has 8 different servings. And each serving size is 2/3 of a cup. So a cup typically is about, like if you took your hand and you fisted it together, that would be 1 cup. So 2/3 of that has 230 calories in it. So what we're saying is that if you ate that whole container, you would have to multiply it by 8. And that's over almost 2,000 calories just for that container. So that would be almost a day's worth of calories. Now, also, what you want to always pay attention to is how much fat does this have in it? See here, this has 8 grams of fat. Now, you want to choose things typically that are going to have less than 3 grams. So you want it to have less than 3 grams in it when you are choosing something. Now, you also really want to look at how much added sugar we have here. So this has 10 grams of added sugar. So that's a lot of added sugar. So typically, we don't want something that's going to have that much added sugar to it. We want to choose something that has less than 3 grams of added sugar. Okay, and so then if we look down further, it shows that it has 3 grams of protein, which isn't bad, but it's not great. So this is what we're looking for when we're deciding. Now, what you could do is also take 2 different labels and look at them and compare them and decide which product you may want to choose. And that will give you a better idea. Well, maybe this one has a little less fat in it, or this one has a little bit less added sugar, and it might be a better choice. Then if we look at B, so with B, this is going to be your typical nutrition fact label that you will have on something like a snack bag of chips, or sometimes sodas will have nutrition labels that look like this. Because a lot of times, like, say for instance, a 20-ounce bottle of soda, you're not really just going to, you're not going to split it and have one serving at one point and then another serving at another point. Typically, you're going to drink the whole thing. So what this label is telling you is if you had the whole container, how much you're going to be taking in, so that you are making an informed choice that you know if you drank the whole bottle, you're getting 440 calories in it. So that's one thing that you were looking at this nutrition label to give you a better idea of what you are consuming when you have the whole thing. So these are just things that you want to pay attention to when you're looking at nutrition labels. All right, so now we're going to talk about the importance of calories. Now, calories aren't bad because we need calories to be able to perform things. It helps us, gives us the energy to breathe, to blink our eyes, to be able to stand up, to be able to think, for our hearts to beat. And it gives us the energy to be able to run across a field, to be able to move our hands back and forth. But you always have to remember, in order to maintain a healthy weight, the amount of calories that you take in have to equal each other. If they do not equal each other, you will gain weight. So that is very important to always make sure that the food and the drinks that you take in, as far as calories go, have to equal what you put out. And so this is where physical activity becomes very important, because as we get older, our bodies don't burn as many calories because we're not growing and we don't need those extra calories to be able to grow. So we have to be physically active, because if we sit in our chairs all day long, it does not require a whole lot of calories for us just to sit there. So in order to not gain weight and put ourselves at risk of developing diseases such as heart disease or becoming obese or to develop diabetes, we want to stay physically active and not consume more calories than we are putting out. All right, so here is another example of calories in versus calories out. So here we have, at the top, we have 8 cherries. Now, 8 cherries has 32 calories, so it will take 7 minutes of walking to burn that 32 calories. And so if we keep going down, so if we ate 13 cheese puffs, those have 160 calories. So in order for us to burn 160 calories, we have to walk for 37 minutes to burn those calories off. So that's something that you really, really need to think about before you make your food choices. Is this really something that I really need? And do I really want to have to do the extra expended calorie, physical activity to be able to burn those calories off? And if we look at like a slice of chocolate cake, it has 537 calories. It would take us 125 minutes of walking to burn off that 537 calories. So you need to decide, is it worth having to go for a walk for 125 minutes to be able to burn off that that chocolate cake? Now, it may be worth it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you just need to remember that when we consume a certain amount of calories, we have to do something physically in order to expel those calories out. All right, so the American Heart Association has come up with some guidelines for physical activity. So the important thing to do is remember, it's not about doing something constant. Like, you don't have to go to the gym to work out. So the American Heart Association says that you need to get at least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. And so what that means is that aerobic activity is something where you causes your heart rate to go up and for you to breathe a little bit heavier. So moderate intensity is you can still have a conversation, but it's just not that comfortable. You can talk to the person next to you, that you can still sing a song, but it's probably not the easiest thing to do. Or if you do more of a vigorous aerobic activity, which you would only need to do 75 minutes per week. So a vigorous aerobic activity would mean that you can't hold a conversation or you can't sing a song while you're exercising because you are breathing so heavy and your heart is pounding a lot harder. And so that is because you are exercising your heart a lot more, and so the intensity allows you not to have to exercise as much in order to get those benefits of the aerobic activity. Now, the next recommendation is that they want you to move more and sit less. And so when they mean they want you to move more and sit less means that every day you need to get up and move. It could mean that you get up and stand up and walk around for 2 minutes every hour. So a lot of your watches now, like your smart watches, will have settings in them to tell you to get up every hour. And like the Fitbit would tell you to get that you need to move that you need to do, I think it's 200 steps per hour. Whereas like an Apple Watch tells you that you need to get up and walk around for 2 minutes every hour. And the reason why they want you to get up and move every single hour is because studies have shown that those people who sit for hours on end are actually causing themselves to become at risk for certain diseases such as diabetes and heart disease just because they're not getting up and moving around. So it is very important that you get up and stand up, walk around at every hour so that you are sitting less and not putting yourself at risk for developing these diseases. And then they want you to add intensity. So like we had said, that we want your heart to beat faster and to breathe a little bit heavier. And the reason why is because your heart's a muscle just like your biceps are or your quadriceps are. All those are muscles along with your heart, and we need you to exercise your heart and make it stronger so that as we get older, that it can still function really well and you don't develop heart disease. And we also want you to add muscle. And so, with adding muscle, we also need to add in some kind of muscle strengthening. So, it doesn't actually have to be weight training. So, you can do what we call body weight training. So, it could be lunges, it could be squats, it could be push ups, it could be a pull up, it could be sit ups, it can be doing planks. Any type of body weight exercise is very important to build muscle, because when we do those exercises and build muscle, that helps us later on in life, because as we get older, we start losing muscle. And when we start losing muscle, that puts us at higher risk of developing those diseases such as heart disease and diabetes. So we want to make sure that you're adding muscle. And then also, it makes that physical activity makes you feel better about yourself, you sleep better, your studies have shown that it actually helps you with test scores and your memory. It helps you with your balance, and you're at less risk of gaining weight and developing those chronic diseases such as diabetes and heart disease. So I hope this presentation has helped y'all and given y'all a little bit of information on why it's so important to eat healthy and stay active, even though you aren't an adult yet. And it's very important as a teenager to start developing these habits early on.